so far, why we think the private sector should be has a critical role to play in REDD+ is for several reasons. First of all, for the REDD+ mechanism, currently the average that is needed annually to reach the climate change mitigation targets for REDD+ is around 17 and 40 billion per year, whereas what the countries pledged so far since 2008 and cumulatively is around 7.5 billion. So you can see there is already a high gap in terms of financial investment. So the private sector would have a critical role to play, first of all, to actually scale up investment in REDD+. But it's not just about investment and carbon credits, it's also looking at the private sector regarding all the critical role they can play by fostering innovation for REDD+. Innovation in terms of technologies, in terms of the process that the private sector knows about. And also we see the private sector being a very important stakeholders because they are part of the problem. Some of the private sector drives deforestation, but they can also be part of the solution.
I mean, you come to these conferences and you get the idea that the private sector is involved and they do have all sorts of innovation and they are working as part of the REDD+ process. But that's here at these conferences, which are very isolated in some ways. Is that not the case in the wider world, in the real world?
I think so far, yes, we have already some private sector which are involved. Different investment banks, different also large to medium private companies that are developing projects as well, that are leading in that area. Nevertheless, there are still a lot of room actually for the private sector to be more engaged because so far they are not involved as much as they could because there is still a lot of uncertainty. Uncertainty at the international level, on the REDD+ mechanism, on the long-term demand, whether there is enough demand and whether the market is robust enough, and uncertainty at the national level. A lot of countries have been doing first steps by engaging in national REDD+ readiness, being involved in the UN REDD and FCPF processes, but there is need for a stronger signal at the national level for establishment of the national REDD+ strategies, mitigation target, and space for the private sector to actually be engaged within the national strategies as well. So I think there is really much need for consultation between the government, the private sector, and all the other affected stakeholders, so they can actually be part as much as they could offer.
To wipe out that uncertainty, as it seems strange in a way so many years after REDD+, that there is this uncertainty in the private sector about what they could be doing, about what the benefits might be. I mean, I've heard it said that REDD+ didn't lay out its definitions very clearly, didn't define exactly what some elements of REDD were. I mean, is there room for improvement in the REDD+ policy?
I think so far there's been a lot of progress in the REDD+ mechanism. But the uncertainty remains more around safeguards issue, having the proper social and environmental safeguard to steer the involvement of the private sector, also to have, actually to make it more clear what would be the legal basis for investment for the private sector around issues of due diligence in the process, risk-sharing mechanism, and also in terms of land tenure ownership and carbon ownership. Who gets the right to the carbon? If the private sector gets involved in some area where you have some communities living there, at the end of the day, you need to have some clear benefit sharing mechanism to know who gets the right to the carbon credit, as well as who also benefit from the benefits that are going to flow from those carbon credits. So it's very important, and I think there is still a need for much improvement in those areas.
I mean, if those improvements are made, if that uncertainty is eradicated, is wiped out, do you think REDD+ will work, can work far better than it is now for tropical regions, tropical forest regions?
I think there is space for really that improvement and that it can work. But regarding the demand, what is the first challenge is the demand on the long term for those credits. And I think the UNFCCC should also play a central role to ensure that there will be enough and sustainable demand for those REDD+ credits, maybe by also increasing, having some more ambitious targets on the mitigation aspect and recognizing REDD+ as a way of achieving those targets.